What? Got it. All right. I'm in the Figma, obviously. So we'll start just new canvases, I guess. This guy, oh no. I think we'll probably just kind of just making this work on the web. I'm not like too concerned about like, I mean, it should work on mobile and all that stuff, but let's just get the basic pieces in place and then we can rejigger from there, I guess. All right, so main interfaces, let's see. Where do we start? This thing can just be, our home is like, I don't have a home as such. It's the browser. So we need, let's just get the, so the first one would be just like my view of my stuff. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
We need a plus to add new stuff. We got a plus now. That goes there. All right, so yeah, we're just, so this is right now a post, technically, whatever. What we need is just blocks, and the blocks are going to be like just a paragraph or something. So I'm just going to steal all this. I need all the Chrome. Why? This is where I started screaming at Figma because it doesn't work like Illustrator. It's old. There we go. That goes there. All right, so this is just going to be text. We don't need that guy. What all do we need here for the thing? Avatar, do we need that? Name, do we need that?
Yeah, I think author makes sense. Yeah, avatar as well.
Yep.
Okay. Then time posted.
Probably relative, with like some sort of full view if you tap on it or hover over it eventually.
We need an lorem ipsum.
I don't know why they don't just put it on the homepage there. I always just want to grab.
I used to have like funny ones and stuff, but this is fine. And that site has looked that way for like a decade. I'm happy with it. Don't change anything. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So this is our one block, something like this. So the context thing, how do we want to handle that? Like, is it a pop out? Does it go down here? Also, we can do, there's that pattern. I saw on internet camera too. How are you doing that? Got the little bannets for it's on chain or whatever, or who posted it or something like this.
Yeah, just like they're like,
Mirror is doing this too.
Slow.
It might, I mean, who knows? It might be me. Yeah, so these guys, this is just the ETH wallet.
Yeah. So there's a few different ways of doing that too, of like slicing the top or the end or some combination of it.
So there, okay, that goes to an Etherscan thing. Yeah, time and then a permalink for theirs. Okay. Which, I mean, is the equivalent of this, yeah.
Well, to my understanding, on Mirror, it was a link to the actual record, not the author
Got it. Okay.
I think.
Well, if we need one of those. Oops. Great. Good work. It's just 0x. Something like that. All right. So whatever that ends up being, to make it look decentralized, you need to make sure something says 0x. How about 0x context?
Perfect.
Decentralized. All right, so context. We don't need to hang on this one too much.
Yeah, I think the only way I kind of imagine context, or I mean, the only way I've thought about it is like before the content and in like a lighter style that sort of maybe italics, maybe gray, maybe just thinner font that just kind of tells me how to read the following content.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wonder even potentially collapsible, but maybe not so important.
Yeah, maybe it like slides out from under the author like layer or something like that, or it just appears.
Okay. Yeah, I think this can pop it open or whatever. I don't know what that should look like though. And then this would just slide it down or something. Something like that. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what this guy should be. Don't need to pick an icon for that. Focus. Okay. Divider guy. Okay. Seems fine for a block for right now.
Beautiful.
So then there'll be a bunch of them. This one was posted 5 days ago. You can tell it's not expanded. Okay, what else do we need on here? So this is, so the way I was thinking about the, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, is there any kind of like query or anything there? Is this, I'm assuming this is like what you get when you get there. Yes. Yerp.
Surely. So this could just be, or something. And then, I mean, I don't know. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, I mean, there may be some like futzing around with what query logic is. You know, is it by colon and then the address? Is it like has author or one of author? But I think as a default, if it looks like a ETH address, filter as an ETH address. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it could also just be, you know, whatever. I mean, this is like sort of, yeah, the technical side of this. I don't know, like how we're thinking. Like, yeah, any guidance here would be good. Or like you just said, Johnny can.
Yeah, we'll be able to set up that logic however we define. So if we want to search by author, search by times, or anything, we should be able to set that up through the graph.
Cool. All right, so, I mean, what else do we need on this page? There'll be a bunch of these. Let's do how do we do the new, let's just do it in line for right now. So what's our, just making the, oh, what, no, it's Phil. we'll get it. So basically we need a form to make a new block. So we need, context field, which and then this is the body, I guess. In the text one, just need, this is assuming we're all logged in here. Need to connect to wallet every time. Okay, what is it? Is it post? Is it guest?
Works for now.
Yep. That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
Post.
All caps.
All right.
Are we thinking about the private, public, encrypt, unencrypt kind of thing now too?
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, help me think that out. So here you are signed in as whoever, right? Jimothy.eth. And like we could have the assumption that you are just posting to the squad, effectively, the squad instance. Like that can be, does that make sense? Or we need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of implies that at some point that becomes a drop-down selector of some sort, or even a multi-select. But for now, it's going to this specific context, to the specific like collection of people who can access it, but without like necessarily pinging them. It's more like going to a place where they can find it. Visibility is nice. Yeah, that's a nice word.
Because this is just, I mean, it doesn't do anything. Like, are you thinking, Shahruz, that there would be a control or something, or?
Okay, yeah, I mean, it could be either way. I think I was calling back to the discussion we were having about like making something like a draft where it's like encrypted, personally. So I don't know if that's like a radio button here that's just like public or private, or a drop down, or multiple buttons. But
yeah, so
always some way to express it.
Yeah, let's talk that through so that we're on the same page. I have a couple models here. So like the model that I'm working from that I, with this is basically you pop it open, it comes in line, you add this, This is just telling you that it's visible to, it is, the only people who are going to see this are the people within your squad. And when you post it, it goes into this listing and is visible by anybody in the squad. Then it's not, by default, it is like sort of encrypted, I guess. It's not seen by the greater world until, which we don't have yet, the sort of post. Copy that. This is the post canvas. So this would be publish. So, I mean, maybe I'm like over clevering this. So, yeah, this stuff goes over here. There's probably a note. And then at the point, so does this make sense?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing. Shahruz, by encrypt, decrypt, public, unpublic, private, are you talking about specifically the visibility step to moving it to the like shared post canvas, or a intermediary stage before that that toggles visibility?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because I
was
think both.
thinking more the latter, but if I'm throwing a wrench into the process here, I think we can skip over that too.
I think that there is there is the squad workspace, right? Which is what we're working in right now. And within the squad workspace, there could be private drafts. Like, so say for instance, I don't want this thing to go, I want it to exist in yeah, we could do a top level nav here. Mine. What is it? Drafts. I don't know what else would this. What would this be?
Post.
Yeah, all posts. Or no, yeah. Well, we got one post, yeah. So I think we'll probably put that in a column or something. But yeah. So this would be mine. Drafts would just be like, instead of this, instead of post, it would be, yeah, you could do a double button.
Visible to me, visible to Buzzard.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, do we want to manage drafts yet? Like, or how do we want to think about this? Yeah. Because it's, I mean, if I don't have to lay it out, I don't want to.
Skip it.
It's one of those
we
things.
can get to it later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but if there's a use case right now that, you know, this is just me being lazy. So, yeah, I think let's come back to it. Like, it'll show up. Yeah. Okay.
Well, can you mute yourself for a second?
I can.
Otherwise I get real echoey. I think for the purposes of this experiment, I don't know that we need private posts or private blocks, but I can see like the use case for it longer term, like in the near future.
Definitely.
Yeah, feeling similar. It's kind of like we're looking at drafts, but in a more collaborative way right now. I guess anything that's in the feed accessible to anybody, but not yet in the post, is in some sense a draft, but it's kind of like a draft that everybody can see. But then I think absolutely there's like more layers before that, like a private draft, and then that goes into it. But yeah, I think just keeping the surface area very small right now and just being like, blocks, are they in a post? And then finally, like, is the post out? Makes sense.
Is that what we talked about earlier too? Like the blocks that need to be encrypted so no one can see them, it's because it's personally like private. I don't know why I'm rating that too, personally private, versus squad level private, I guess is the idea. I mean,
yeah,
I guess at some point we could be working on like a top secret DARPA contract, you know, and the squad posts have to be private. But okay, personally private for now.
I think one other kind of layer here from the like, what does private mean in a technical implementation is there's privacy through encryption, which is like nobody should be able to crack that by any means. And then there's privacy, which is like it's a needle in a haystack, and it's therefore somehow private because it's going to be very, very difficult to get access to. So yeah, I think those things would apply here too, of like which one is which.
Yeah. Yeah, the case that kind of makes sense here is that like you're doing a bunch of writing, you know, you don't need it to go out, or you're working on little drafts or something like this, like because you're capturing thoughts really quickly. And you want the security of working with vulnerable thinking for some reason, and there is no way to find it whatsoever. Your squad mates can't get to it, and you definitely can't get to it in a larger, you know, context, right? And then there is needle in the haystack that you're talking about, which is effectively what we're doing here. Like we're posting within context. Well, I guess, you know, we talked about like encrypting it at the Buzzard level. Like all of the draft squad draft posts, you know, that we're talking about here that are pre-publish. Yeah, so that's what I'm, yeah, go ahead.
I guess, Shahruz, one quick question. When you say needle in the haystack level protection, are you referring to unencrypted content being pointed to from somewhere in the blockchain, just not actively being like indexed by anything?
Correct.
But the content itself is not yet encrypted. It's actually just like sitting on IPFS as content. Okay, so
got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess there's kind of a matrix here. There's content encrypted, decrypted, and content visible, invisible, sort of.
Actually, kind of one question on that. Is it like possibly to actively like not index certain things?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so that's at least that's the thing that I'm doing with the camera stuff. Of if you create a film roll, you can set it to be public or unlisted, and if it's unlisted,
got it.
It will still be on the blockchain, but it just won't be sucked into everything that the graph is doing. Which, if that's going to be kind of like the main entry point where people are building off of that one graph API and using the SDK and using whatever services we put out, then that stuff should remain unlisted, you know, pretty well.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so we're just, all right, yeah, because I'm trying to make this clever. So that, you know, you have to do the minimum amount of thinking, but like exposing the controls aren't bad. So, okay, what's the metaphor here? Like, how does this work? So I'm going in, and the concept that I'm working with is like I'm posting this, and primarily it's just going to my squad, right? Is there a case where I want, like, what are the cases that I want to, you know, like, do I want to make a block public, like, yeah, at any point within this interface? Or does that only happen through the posting interface here? Or interface, I guess.
My feeling is in step 2 here.
Namings. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, we can, yeah, do we need to expose any controls here? Or maybe I'm not seeing the case.
I think it, at least as like far as I'm seeing it, is it's probably again another thing similar to drafts that, you know, I feel like it's like almost equivalent to drafts in some sense, or could be quite similar, that we can kind of push it towards the future and like mostly hide this away from the user.
Yeah, if we run. Got it. Okay. Okay, so let's just let's see if there's anything else that pops up in this. So we got context, we got body. This is a text post. How do we want to handle the image thing? So right now, I was doing this. Just do an uploader guy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was picturing. Just a little button probably next to the post button somewhere, or next, or should it just be literally like a different plus button?
Yeah, so a
switch there or something, like if you click that.
What does this look like? So this thing is just universal.
Yeah, I guess that text field maybe could turn into an image preview once the browser has it locally, but hasn't shipped it off yet.
Say again?
Maybe one sort of affordance here is like the text box becomes just an image preview of the like image that's locally in the browser but hasn't been sent off as a block yet. So you fill out the context and then post sort of both together.
Okay. Yeah, we could also just do like here.
Mm.
And then you pick one and you get the specific form. It's like chunky that way. And then we don't have to do any cleverness.
Yep.
You know, then it's just
I guess it's clear where the other types are going to appear when they do.
Yeah, and I think this won't live very long, but that's probably because we're going to combine this into one interface at some point. But let's just keep the paths simple. This is, whether or not these becomes the same form or not, I don't know. Like it's, I don't know. What do you guys think?
What do you mean by same form?
So like component wise, right? Like how we're actually going to structure these things. So like if I hit plus and then, you get a dropout.
Yep.
And then you select text and then should get my text box back.
There's a text thing. Otherwise it creates like a choose image thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess what Dave is saying is like eventually like the text and choose image thing can kind of be one box instead of two separate clicks.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
some sort of drag and drop like interface.
Yeah, we'll probably have some composer kind of thing. And then depending on like, in the case here where we've got like a block generator, where you can make a big, like, this thing can be, if you type, this is it makes blocks like really rapidly. And then you can have like a little, this where that image icon goes and it pops in an image block here or something like that. So depending on where we're going for right now, like we've got the slowest motion block generator. So it's just spitting these blocks out onto this page with context. Okay. That makes sense. All right, so. Okay, is there anything else on here that we got context and body? This is the text post. It's fine. So when I post, it just pops in here.
On the blocks, should there be an edit button somewhere?
I think so.
Yeah, I got to figure out what to do context because edit. Edity.
And
it's gonna be blue. Editable. Okay, and then just do those inline potentially.
No, context here is still a button, right? It's not context content. Okay.
How do you mean? How do you mean?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm just asking if the context link is still just a button or is it the actual content itself now?
That should be a button. Like I think that pops open like this guy.
Yep. Okay. Still, that's good.
Like
I guess just the color
whether it's collapsible or
off.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that thing yet. It's like
okay.
Yeah,
it's sort of there. Yeah.
It's floating and it knows it needs to be there.
Yeah, I'm like this is how I mock things up. It's just sort of
Totally.
I'll try to explain it better. All right, so then the context is this one. This is what is this thing? Log back.
That's nice.
It could just be state. One way to do it.
It's a pretty nice way.
Maybe too clever, but we'll see. Cancel. These could also go down here, wherever. Yeah, I'll make a button for that. So yeah, this way, I mean, we're doing basically everything in the page. We're doing that regardless in this. But these things could be modals too, if that it's easier to implement, like, and they can just pop up over top. Yeah.
I think both should be easy.
Cool. Okay. What else we got here? So that's the blocks, and then same stuff over here. Could be making these components, but that'd slow me down.
Yeah. It's all right.
I don't make enough components. All right. What else do we need here? So we've got this flow, text, image. I can lay out the image thing. Am I missing anything? And
only thing that I'm a little vague on is whether we decided what we, in some sense, what we were doing with history and at what point that is viewable and how it's viewable.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is interesting. I don't really know what to do.
Can you click directly into a block, or is there like some little feature that allows you to view the history, or both? Or
so
one other, yeah, go ahead.
One other view I thought I saw for a second is like clicking, or the viewing history just replaces the whole feed with that block's history, but like it basically updates the query. But there needs to be some way to navigate back, and I think just like that might throw people for a loop. I don't know if that's the right way of presenting it, but it does keep it very flat and at the same level.
So can you explain that again? Like
yeah, so if you scroll to the left pane, basically like clicking history, which might be a button next to edit, just like replaces all those previous blocks below with previous versions. So you just kind of see the history of it. But I'm imagining it like takes over the entire screen, but maybe there's a way to sort of like pull it into, yeah, kind of like here's a subquery on this block that lists related past versions.
Okay, so go ahead.
Right, yeah, real quick. So is the nav transition there also updating the query bar at the top? And that becomes kind of like the global nav state of sorts?
Yeah, so
makes sense.
This thing is a browser, like, so there, yes, like, because you get real quick into like preview, like history and all this other stuff here. So
yeah,
that's where my brain was going. But so like, so in this case, you would click history, then this would change out to, would it be like post and then history, or, you know, something like this?
Yeah, or history colon block ID or something like
that. Yeah.
And that also gives the user some idea of like syntax for future as well.
Yeah.
Block history, right? Not post history.
Block history.
Yeah.
Though it could be post as well, potentially.
Yeah, I was doing the thing with posts before.
Presumably the history operator would just know whether the target ID is a post or a block and display accordingly.
Flip it.
I never thought about making an arrow like that, but that makes sense.
It's very nice. just watching this whole Figma file being made is just so satisfying. It's just, there's like so little fuss and just I don't know. I love this. This is
Yeah,
like-
normally I'd be smashing my head into my keyboard.
Same.
I am smashing my head. I feel so clunky doing this. All right. Yeah, I don't know where that goes necessarily. There's some pattern here with this browsing, you know, and then like, is home just like your this thing, like your feed? I mean, you could make it anything, obviously, but we'll make a home
guy.
a home icon.
Dave builds a
Hominid.
house.
Yep. Where's the things in here?
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Where is the subtraction nonsense?
Oh, right in the center in the nav up top, but the rightmost element in the center.
Oh, yeah, the zoom controls were hiding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I would be digging around like font awesome for like 10 minutes and then copying the SVG and then having to like read. Yeah, this seems better.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Just draw it.
Just draw it and waste everybody's time. How do you?
I don't know how to draw a triangle.
This house is not ergonomic. I don't know how to add.
I think it's a double click with that first one. Yeah, there you go.
Got it. It's for big people.
Wow.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. we made a house. All right. This is what happens, and then that gets really elaborate and turns into Taj Mahal if you don't.
Yeah, let's just focus in on this.
Okay.
Yo, actually, I want my home
Yeah,
icon to be
just
the Taj
we're gonna
Mahal.
make them
That's amazing.
All right, so this is kind of too where we're like this interface starts to move into like doing adjacent like graph navigation stuff or whatever and following these like, so there's like some panel over here that lets you like, you're near this node, go to that node, and then, you know, anyways, there's something with that. Browsing, new browsing metaphors. Okay, so in this case, for history, we're saying, let's just lay out. I'm just gonna keep doing everything in the page, and then it's kind of like how you were doing I think Shahruz was doing you can just build the contracts and then break them out later or whatever it is. I'm doing the same thing, just everything in the page. All right, so what did the history look like? What denotes a historic event? What do we need to show here?
Time, I think. I don't think we're really worried about diffs at this point because those can get just unbelievably complicated.
Yeah. So, or whatever. It's not linear. Yeah, how does that work?
What do you mean by not linear relative to what?
So, because like a bunch of different people could be, like anybody can edit these, yeah?
True.
And so.
But it does feel like we're still dealing only with one lineage.
Okay, yeah, and then.
At least for now. But yeah, I mean, definitely there's space for like forking and merging here at some point.
Yeah,
but...
I'm just making sure that, so basically, so this is an edit, and then show what it looked like what the actual text
like
was, and then, yeah, I'm trying to think the simplest way of doing this. This is where I'm out past, I haven't really thought about this at all, so guide me.
Are those dots placeholder profile pictures or some sort of expand control?
No, I was just doing some kind of or something.
Track it.
Yep. No, that's nice. That's very nice. Yeah.
mean, you could do that.
Oh,
That would be kind of neat.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need any of these things. It's just nonsense structure that helps you understand what you're looking at.
Yep.
It's good. I like it.
Okay, so
I'm starting to feel like I guess the visit show mechanic for context is maybe very similar to history. Like history just instead kind of slides out something from the bottom and then changes the state of it. And yeah, context just like shows you more about the current topmost block. Presumably, I mean, does context change as well over time?
That's a like, are these snapshots of the block? Like, you know, because it's just this whole thing 2 days ago or whatever versus, you know, like, I mean, I think that's probably going to be the easiest because like splitting all of these things out is going to get.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also just do like, they're pretty simple. So how do you do that? I would want that context edit.
So a regular edit would just be 2 of these back to back, right? Or in other words, I'm sorry, I'm like saying, I guess if you happen to edit both context and content in one, it's really just 2 separate events right next to each other.
Could be. I mean,
that might.
Yeah, I may over
simple. Yeah, I mean, like I said, that sort of solves the problem of like, was content updated? Was context updated? It's just like, no, like both can't happen at once. It's always one or the other, but they could happen right after each other.
Yeah, I mean, you could also just have both. Like, you know, yeah, this is where you guys have to rein me in here because I'll just start building a million states because it's fun. So, all right. Because it could, you know, so what I'm doing here is like, basically this is an event, right?
Yep.
Context was edited by so-and-so on, and here's a lot. And then this could be, we wouldn't do it this way, but, you know, so this is an event where both of them got edited or whatever. Is this making sense?
Yes, and the fact that you say event here also makes me think, you know, there's other types of events that could show up in here, sort of giving you like context about where it appeared, where it was removed from. So yeah, I like this. Like it's less of a revision diff view and more of, like the actual history of the block.
Yeah, super cool. If it gets like referenced somewhere.
So like this would be a link or something, right? Like, let me do that actually. SF symbol time.
It's fast. Everybody's got their own like icon flow. I'm just pulling up the noun project anytime I need anything.
Noun project, yeah.
Yeah.
This one is just, what do we do here? Yeah, mine is really out of date, and then this one's nice because you can just use the font. Anyways, yeah, something like this. And then that would update this guy up here, give you a page with just this. I don't know what the nav looks like this or how you go up, and you know, there's a bunch to work out there.
I guess that's I was kind of imagining this all inline, but I feel like it works just as well inline as full screen. In other words, like it's, you could sort of say, show me more content in place relative to this block, or show me content about this block at the top level. And I think there may be some like different ways it renders, but at the end of the day, it seems like both work just as well. And
yeah, I mean, it's just patterning. So like how you want to, I mean, there's a bunch of different avenues that we can go here. Like this can open up in its own screen, and then it can have it could just go to this area on the page for now, you know. But what's a page, right? This thing is going to be changing all the time. So yeah, I think we come back to all that. Let's just we can create these blocks with this thing that's expandable inline for now, and then like when we want to start working with them in its own context, or like this could just pop open a tray or something, you know, like there's a bunch of stuff to do there.
Sort of,
yeah. Or if you just want to link this thing because we got a URL now, and then you want to send it to somebody or put it in here somehow, or I don't know. So, okay, so history. This is sort of mucky, needs some thinking.
Yeah, I guess showing who does matter now, because we do.
Say again?
So, I guess like before I for second thought that the who didn't matter for each history revision, but like it can be anyone, so that does need to be specified somehow. Yeah, it feels like that could be played with at some point.
Yeah. So, okay, so we've got a history tray of some sort, and like each event has some it has some metadata on here that lets you scan it real quick and do something with it. And then there's probably some functionality to, yeah, like what can you do with these things?
One that I remember is sort of like promote or make primary or make head.
Yeah, that's right. Great. What do we do for that? Does this show here?
Yeah.
Wait, actually, John, can you say that one more time? I didn't. What do you mean by like promote? Is it like putting it as like the main thing of that block?
Exactly. Yeah, it's sort of like reverting an edit, but non-destructively.
Okay.
But it would also sort of imply that it like stays in the history as its original version and future occurrences. But I guess future, okay, I'm like rambling here, but basically possibly that also becomes an event that's like the version was changed somehow, and then it like also links to the version that it used to be and became. But the very, very head is always like the most recent, or not the most recent, but like the correct one. So I don't know how much redundancy you need to see in the same flow, but yeah, there's.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry, my mouse has decided to not work.
Oh, good.
Because what? Why?
Could it be connecting to another laptop? Because I think usually they have like strict limits on how many they can be.
It's connected to my iMac Pro, which is in storage. So I don't know. Should be fine. All right, sorry. So you were saying like walk through that again? I was kind of half paying attention.
All good, and I'm not sure. Like I've only like the vaguest sort of ideas here, but basically, an ability to promote a block, which then creates an event that says something about this action that was taken. Another version of a block was promoted, and I guess the other thing I'm wondering about is like, do we still see that version? I guess like. So let's say I promoted the very first version. Do we show the very first version again, or does the very first version just become like a different style and there's something pointing down to it? Fine. Not that one or the other way is better. It's just like density of information.
So are you asking if the original order for how they got like made basically is maintained somewhere?
Yeah, I guess how much are we like rewriting that, even though everything's like actually saved and not being rewritten, but visually. So if like that middle body plus content thing was made the head, what happens to the version that's currently the head? Does it like now become the very latest event and then something else goes on, becomes like the very
The last
head
one.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's try some stuff. Okay, so queso.
And I think also there is like, I haven't seen a satisfying, implementation of this across other interfaces. So I feel like we have all the freedom in the world here.
Okay, good.
It doesn't seem to be like good, like common, approaches to this.
Okay. All right, so somebody edited this one. It's contextual edit. Now, this guy up. Don't really need this line, but I like it. Okay, so and we're gonna say was that. All right, we could just. And do something like prime.
So it's kind of a label. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this. Sure. I don't know how to do. How do you jump it to the front in Figma?
Command open square bracket moves it, I think, layers up, but you have to check it a bunch of times.
There's got to be a move it all the way up thing. Whatever.
Ascend to front. If you right click. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Our prime button.
Options
prime. Sandwich wiki. Stupid. It's spending too much time. All right. Or head, or main, or
brain.
Brain. Brian.
Just any word, Brian.
No. Prime works for now.
Prime.
Yeah, so basically this thing is, this is just that. And like, you don't need to repeat it in here necessarily.
Yep.
Because you know it's this one. And then, then we can have a, what do I do with it? Not a very good pattern, but something like this for each of these, and then don't really need to do this, but set to prime. So each of these has a, damn it, wherever it goes. Yeah, I don't we need a name for these things, but does that make sense? Or are we like way off track here, or what are we doing?
Nope. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that we could throw in right now is just the prime state change edit type event.
So say again, like, so
I guess, is there something above, like, edited 2 days ago? Here, I just point to it. Right here that says X was changed. X, I guess like prime was changed from an or to or something about that event.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So for this block, you mean? Like,
no, above this block, because I mean, this is a
Okay.
contextual, like this is something totally different, but I guess
Yeah.
since then, this block was set to prime, which is now this one, but
so that's an event, you mean? Got it.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. And then let's see, whoever this is, set it. Why not?
Yep, could be a different person.
How the hell? What do you write for this?
I mean, prime was changed from block ID to block ID. Could be like a very rough
Okay.
placeholder.
That would be context metadata, no? If it's moving around, this just occurred to me. Is it attached at the block level, this information? Or the lineage level?
Built into the blockchain, like really.
To the block itself.
Yeah, like you would have to change the block on the blockchain to point to a different IPFS hash, which is how you would derive this information. At least as far as I know.
So in other words, it's the way that we're telling this is based. Does parent tie in here? I'm like.
Yeah, I think that's basically what this pattern looks like, is that most of this data is coming from the chain of parents that are inside the metadata that's hosted on IPFS, according to our schema. But then prime is basically, is it on chain or not? And how do you signify those events? Is that right?
Prime is the latest chain data, right?
Right.
Or like what's in that token.
I guess something that has been prime.
Yeah.
Something that has been prime before in the past is still on the chain, or it actually does move off, because it feels like it would be embedded into the history, so it will sort of be part of the chain forever. But something that hasn't yet been prime might not actually exist there. But this may be semantics and isn't like tied to design.
Yeah, we may be down the rabbit hole here a little.
Yeah.
So.
I mean,
it's almost like,
fundamentally,
when do we run into this too? It's like we might run into this eventually, but it might not be in our initial post.
I don't think so. So, I mean, it's good to work. We know the history can work like this. What are the historical events right now? Like we're going to run into the pattern where like we want to, all right, so in history, we've got like an entire history sort of context here. Every block has a historical context. It's got events. You know, we're sort of, this is something that blocks can have. Yeah, we just need to pick the events that we want to spit out now, and then the functionality. Yeah, if we're letting edits happen. Ooh. So okay, yeah. All right, let's get this into the post page, and maybe some of this stuff will be clearer, because we're trying to get a post out the door. But I think we worked out some interesting pattern stuff here. Okay, so we're about over to this guy. Assume that history exists. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, moving to the post. How do you, like, send the block to the post?
Yep.
Yeah. Okie doke. That's what we needed.
I mean, probably the simplest way right now is just stick it into there, that little drop down.
The ellipses thing.
Yeah, we're quickly running it in this interface, adding a lot of stuff here. So this is just the worst possible.
Yeah, this is gonna get changed real fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
All right.
for back
So
you gotta spell post with a POA. You're gonna do the two.
Yeah.
our post editor.
Perfect.
All right. So we were gonna just make this like a toggle. It's either in the thing or not. So what does that look like? You could star it. You could.
Starring to me signals unique importance over inclusion.
Yeah.
Filled in
Could
green plus.
make it
Checkbox.
Oh,
Mhm.
I see.
Yeah, checkbox.
Yeah, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think for now, like, we just, I mean, we'll gloss this up at some point, but
yeah.
checkbox, if checked, then it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a post. So it's in the.
Yep.
Oh my God, go to the back.
So many layers.
Mm-hmm. No, send to the back. What we'll do here though is we'll pull,
Yeah.
probably, and then 2, and then remove that, and then 8, and then effects.
Like it's starting to look a little bit like a tweet, but like 100 times more useful and interesting than a tweet.
That's what we're going
Like,
for.
Yeah, I mean, like tweet. It's astonishing to me that tweets still don't have any sort of like history or edit. And I know, I mean, like this point, it's never gonna happen. But like, wow.
I mean, you'll land on the same forms over and over again. That's how it goes.
Yep.
Check. Person
just
check mark. Oh, there we go.
To float this is inclusion and exclusion from the post and event as well. And do we worry about that now?
Inclusion, exclusion.
That would be tricky to query. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, if that is tricky, then yeah, I should probably just leave it off. But at some point, would it be interesting to see that, like, oh, at this time it was included in the post, and then it was removed for some reason, or like they went back and forth for a while. But Shahruz, I'm curious as to why you think that would be tricky to query.
So a lot of the stuff that's going to get generated within this right now is coming from the IPFS like chain, which could be work that's happening on the front end, but because it's posted to the blockchain, it's not being seen by the graph yet. So the graph can make reverse relations really easy to query. So if you wanted to see, like, show me if this block was included in posts, the graph would make that easy. But if we're doing things through IPFS, there's no easy way to reverse kind of figure out where it's been included or excluded from.
Yep.
So that is, yeah, we're probably going to run in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're saying, like, maybe I'm not following that pattern all the way through, but are we going to hit that now?
It's like a implementation detail for how this data is pulled in.
I think it's also maybe at least like thinking about it, touching into again relationships a little bit further, and how transclusion can kind of be a relationship, and defining that in a more queryable way rather than kind of just having it arbitrarily defined. Which, like, it's possible to probably still query it, but it might be kind of intense.
Makes sense.
I don't know where this goes. Anyways. Yeah, so I think checkbox for, like, including now until we come up with something better. in the post. If that's fine for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll check. Glad you think so. It feels crazy to me right now, but getting somewhere. All right, so we're in the post.
The post. Perfect.
Yeah, so what is this? How is the relationship here? We need a nav to go to post. It's the only one. Okay, so pattern here. All right, we got the history. There's some stuff that we need to figure out in here. I think that if we just we can go through another pass on this and like sort of nail that down. For now, if you check this, like you make a post, it goes into the stream or wherever you go, there's a checkbox or some control. You click that, it is then in this canvas, the post canvas. All right, so we can do some playing in here. We've got the edit mentality worked out. So you just edit the thing in line. It's got that stuff. History. Adds an event there. Okay, that's fine. That same functionality works here. What functionality do we need on this guy? There's publish, which pushes the whole thing to the chain. We can work on that flow. For now, what do we need? We need to reorder these things.
Yeah, I definitely liked your little 3-line hamburger icon in the previous one.
Yeah. 1 3-line hamburger. Do we want to be able to add to this page at all? What is that?
I mean, the idea of, I think, Kristen, you may have mentioned this in the previous call, like some way to add content like in the place that I want the content to appear. And I think to some extent it might just be able to be like the same editor just pop up like in line somewhere, but already it answers the question of where to appear and it's automatically checked in the purple state.
Yep. Okay. This just gives our anywhere the plus exists, you can make a damn it.
Yeah.
So then that would just have some contextual information. Bottom. I don't know where this goes. Yeah, this interface is weird.
One way to, I guess, so one question I have about the posts is blocks are seems like a little bit different than posts in the sense that posts are meant to be read. Like blocks are like a stream of information and they are meant to be read too. But a post is a more complete whole. So does it make sense to strip out of a lot of the things that are traditionally in blocks and keep it much more simple in terms of it? Is like maybe just the checkbox essentially? And I mean, I'm not sure.
Maybe there's a pipeline here and we're looking at the first screen in the pipeline. Because it allows for like a brainstorming that it's not like a Google Doc surface, so you can just quickly reorder things. It's more of like, because your thinking is now focused to only these blocks, which is nice. You're like, okay, I see, like you get a feel for what you're looking for, and then to move to the next stage, like that's interesting that we didn't think about this earlier, like making it a post. That's a whole other, yeah, put it into an open editor surface where everything is in the order that you specified, but more like a Google Doc, I would think.
So in other words, this is kind of like a staging area
Yeah.
before our post.
There's a post builder sort of, because this takes, I mean, the whole flow of this has just taken the sting out of getting the right content into the place that you're gonna like write from. I mean, it basically, it should write itself from here, sort of, so to speak. You're just doing like spackling. That's interesting. How do you move from this to like a open editor?
Yeah. So one thing that I've kind of floated around is two views, not two views, but like a horizontal or vertical delineation on this screen between the things that are around and possibly to be included in this post and the things that are like definitely in this post. And unchecking something may remove it from the very like hard right, like most representation of a post, but not necessarily from the left side. And you know, I'm kind of imagining some like way to drag things from the left to the right. But yeah, it's just one.
What are you dragging from left to right?
At the end of the day, blocks.
Okay.
Sort
Yeah,
of
I guess
as an inclusion.
I have like a silly little drawing I made earlier.
Silly drawings
of
are
this.
amazing.
I have so much on this page, but it's just
Yeah.
like blocks and then moves over to post.
Yeah, eventually move that way. Yep.
And that this is the browser.
So we're
Like
still,
I was imagining like the bare interface essentially, where it's like this and you just go. Psh.
So there's still a staging ground. Like, how are we feeling on staging ground before post?
Okay. One thing that when I saw our post at the very top, that little text string, is that a query? And is the staging area a query?
Yes, that's how I'm visualizing it on the technical
That
side.
makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Because that makes it, I mean, I would think if it's just a query, it's pretty efficient, like to do that, like the computer like can quickly like show that, like that shouldn't be a heavy lift, but yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I'm totally like bamboozled at how you move
And in that
from
sense, it's also an
blocks. So like a tweet chain into a document, like that's like, I don't know why I'm just like, what?
It's insane. It's actually insane. Like
it shouldn't be though. I mean, so the difference, I guess you're like, what do they call it? Thread unroller? What's that tool called?
Yep.
I don't think that's what we're going for here, that we're just like showing a bunch of blocks of like, we want to, after we've figured out like this, like, you know, more or less the order that feels right, like we seem to have captured all the information for a first round, at least, of going to like a draft, like a full draft. Then we'd want it to turn into like a document, not a blockchain.
Yeah.
Block space chain. Yeah, what's I think throwing me is there's inevitably going to be the desire to add more blocks to a draft. So like figuring out that UI, so like you've got it in a draft form after staging, and then more stuff trickles in, you want to add that, like where, like maybe it's like a simple thing, it just gets added to the top of the draft view then in block format, and you can, interesting to think
kind
about
of like
this.
I also wondered about like unread red states. Like, has this block been positioned yet? Has it been like arranged, or is it new to this draft?
Okay. Weird. When is it added to the draft?
Yeah, and have you seen the
Or
change?
yeah, or maybe like
Potentially. Oh, sorry.
this is a new block. So we're calling it staging, and then after staging draft. I don't know if that nomenclature makes sense to keep, but once you're in draft format, if you add new blocks, those could be just shown at the top, like new blocks that haven't been sort of contextualized or put into the draft. They're not integrated yet. They're just in block form.
So they're kind of like the highlighted blocks. Blocks that we know are the ingredients.
Yeah. I mean, this is the equivalent, like, I have written papers like this, like research papers, where I write an outline ahead of time and then fill in information that are basically like blocks, where it's not written like for public consumption. It's sort of like notes to self kind of thing. Order the thing how it should be ordered, and then if you move that into like there, and I've kept like lineage of the documents as it like, or the document as it evolves. But once you have sort of like, it's an annotated kind of outline, I guess, it makes it so much easier to write because you've got all the information there. You kind of just
scaffolding.
You start describing what the information is. It's a totally different mindset and like skill set, but once you have the annotated outline, like it's all right there. You just have to say it nice, make it look pretty.
I like that.
This should be interesting.
Very.
I really don't know how this didn't come up until now. Good point, CJ.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where to go here. So, with what you just talked about, which I kind of followed, yeah, can you just give me the shorthand on a flow? Like I'm still working with, you put blocks in here, they come here, you check block, you check it, it goes into somewhere, right? Like, we'll have a bunch of different like buckets and staging areas and stuff like that. What is this version that we can do now that's a flow that is like, yeah, that's where I'm. So this, like, what do we want to do with the blocks once they're in the staging area? Like, you've got what happens with them in the staging area? Do you're just moving them into a draft? Like, what are the types of things that we're doing?
Editing is still happening.
Yeah, editing, I think reordering for sure. So here's where we would probably, like, how do you get into nesting like sections maybe? Headers, like that sort of thing. It's just basic document structure, and we can keep it really simple right now where somehow like delineating this is a new section, and then you don't have to worry about indentation or anything like that could work. So yeah,
like a spacer block.
Okay, so we're getting into canvas mode here. Like okay.
We can also
Figma sucks for this.
I think we can also table this, and once we get to this point, do another design jam to be like, all right, what the fuck are we doing? Because if we could run into the tension of it, and it might happen sooner rather than later, but if we're too far out that we are not sure.
We're just getting into a complex interface here. So like, we move this block in here, then like we could very easily have, like the slash kind of thing, like Notion does, you can add new things to here. You could, like add an H1 or something.
Yeah.
It's a composer, right? What do we want to do with that model? What's our version of this? Like, how does, that work? That's a much fancier UI than I was. So, but again, it's the canvas model. So like, there's a couple things here, like, so the basic pipelining of getting, like the model of having a collaborative post, right? Like we are taking with a checkbox, moving them into a shared editor, like landscape, right? The minimum, like the simplest thing I can think is you move those up and down in an order, right?
Yeah,
like there's nothing,
I like that.
You want a divider? Yeah. If you want a header, you make a new block and it's in all caps. There's your header. You want a divider, you make a block and it's a bunch of lines. There's, it's like, it's really low end.
Sure.
So what all do we need? We want to be able to edit these things. Like, should they have a different look that's more collapsed, like this effectively?
Yeah, I definitely like the collapsed view.
Can you just like start typing to edit?
Yeah, I think it's
like click, type, edit.
You do that and then blah, 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 it's editing the thing. We can do a right click menu on this thing and add a bunch of stuff, which we should do anyway, give you probably delete,
remove, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, the uncheck. Yeah, what all is going in this? What can we do here? Like the edit menu is.
Preview? Do we want that?
So this is what, I was wondering, like, is it preview a separate mode, or is it kind of like those what you see is what you get editors where you have two views of something and you kind of see it like formulating as you're editing on the left pane?
Could do that.
Yeah, maybe a toggle. But
so if we take this interface and change this around, this is the composer. These are the blocks. This is our preview. And then it goes like this, because we don't need block level.
No. I mean, there's probably still a way to like long press on it at some point and like view all of this information, but I think each level it gets less and less like forefronted and just sent behind.
So down here we have like whatever the metadata and I mean whatever we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We'll fancy all this up. Names, whatever that end up being.
Is it still interesting to show the context field of this post?
So that is then there is a separate post level context.
Yeah.
That goes somewhere. Ooh.
Context is always question mark. So the context is always a question mark, it seems like.
Yeah, it's like the magical stand-in.
Because I'm curious if like even in our first iteration, if it's going to be used for like side conversations on a block.
Yeah, I mean, very probably. Yeah, I don't know where the context goes in this thing. It's the same bunch of metadata.
No.
We could do fancy UI where they're like cards and you can flip them.
Mm-hmm.
UI. We'll get there. And then, yeah, I don't know. We've got little links to these kinds of things, and then I don't. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's all this stuff. I mean, we can put whatever metadata down here we want.
Yep.
That stuff will probably fill in as we start getting it in the page. Okay, so check. Got these things in here. You got a place that you can edit the context. Don't know how to get between these things and what this interface looks like. Yeah. So we have two different views of this. Yeah.
So the left is more blocky in UI. The right is more draft. It sort of flows together. It's more streamlined. Is the post composed of the blocks? So if you are editing, do the blocks then become more polished, basically? So it'll read like it's being written for an external audience, like when you're back in the stream internally. Does that make sense? Because if we're editing, really. If we're editing the post for public consumption, then they're gonna the blocks are gonna change. It's gonna sort of feel like paragraphs more than.
Yeah.
So you're saying like, can blocks kind of coexist in the same paragraph, but still like have been blocks and know that they are blocks, but like sit next to each other. So maybe those two blocks actually are one paragraph, and so that the space between is deleted, but the fact that they were blocks is preserved.
You kind of cut out there for me.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry. Basically, what I'm wondering is like, is if this is combined into a paragraph in this view, but we still preserve the fact that they were two blocks separately. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like changing it from blocky to more like prose?
Yeah, I think I'm more wondering about.
Are you thinking about like the edit history, like a block that started as
so,
like?
Yeah,
it
a block that started as
just,
like kind of like mumbo jumbo, and then it turns into this like really nicely worded. But that's fine because there's a history. Interesting. So you're gonna need the history tray. Weird.
Yeah, I see what you're saying though, because it is like, you know, this block formed from somewhere, and now all of a sudden it seems like it could have been a pretty like massive change to what it initially.
Which is fine though. I think my sense is that the preview.
It's like, do you fork the block?
Can you edit? Can you edit in the preview? Or is that what we're sort of playing with right now?
Not in the preview, but in here in the composer. I mean, we could try to collapse these, but the interface is just going to get really complex. Like,
no, I think it would make sense to like if you could edit in both of them. One of them is more like polished. It's going to look like a preview, but you can edit in it more like an editor, like a standard text editor, like Surface. This might be too clever, but the one on the left is where you can like see the history tray. You can look at context and stuff. You can't do that in the preview. Like the preview is more polished. The composer context is where you could, yeah, see lineage and all the extra details. it's collapsed in the preview. Like it's not, I don't know where that information would live after publishing, like, but it's, you can't click on a paragraph and see the history. You can't click on a paragraph and see the context. You'd have to go in preview. You'd have to go to the composer to do that. Does that make sense?
So is the post consumed through a composer then?
Is it consumed? How do you mean?
Well, I guess, yeah, if we still want to expose all of this like underlying data, then the final thing is not going to look like preview as much as something more like composer. But is it, maybe it's like toggleable views? I mean, there's even this sense that I have, like, what if you could just put your cursor anywhere, and like wherever the cursor is, it like pulls up the relevant information about like the paragraph that it's in to the side or something.
Yeah.
But I do think that that information should still be like traversable and accessible through the paragraph itself. But I definitely like the idea of editing in something like the preview pane, because there you're almost completely like forgotten that they are blocks. You're editing them as like continuous text, but since we are rendering blocks, like all of that is still being sent backwards to the actual block.
Yeah, I almost envision that you can, like, it's just preference. Where do you, and like based on what edit you're doing, like whether you want it to be editing in the preview pane or the context composer pane. And an edit in any one of the two panes will result in the other one being updated. This is where I don't know if it's too fancy, like if we're getting into, I mean, maybe it's you toggle, you choose one or the other. They're not side by side.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead here. I think like we can collapse all this stuff into one super interface, but it's going to take some iterations to get there. So like we've got this. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like, again, I think this is like a lot of like almost preferential kind of things. And it's like, where are we putting the opinions in this thing? And are we trying to take an unopinionated view, at least for the time being, for the as much as we can? So at least all the functionality is there, or at least like some degree of basic functionality is there. And then like opinions can be kind of like built out later.
Yeah, I think I mean, because we have like some, here's like here's a style of working with the blocks. We're trying to like express all of the basic functionality, right? Like you can reorder them. They start as blocks and then they morph somehow based on the interface that we've gotten. Like if it morphs into a blog post like this, right? The preview, this thing in my mind is static. It's like this is the equivalent of Markdown, and then this is just it rendered out so that you can see what it's going to look like when you hit publish and it goes out to the world. We don't even need this thing. You can cognize that mentally, whatever. They're options. Long-term, sure, you can go in this and edit all of it or whatever, and then it can propagate back all the way into this stuff, right? And then you got a history of the edit. So it's going to take some iterations to get there. Yeah. So for now, like, what is the move from here to here? And do we have a composer model, right? And that's plenty. And are these different in any way? Like, are we showing that you can scale these down to work with them in a different way, and you can still get to all of this control stuff with like a right click? Are we going to, add that layer of stuff, or are we just going to take these blocks and make them reorderable in a page? And then
the more it seems to go, the more I think, we should just take the blocks and make them reorderable on the page, because it's like an easy React component, and then you're adding like a little hamburger. Like basically, it's so easy.
Yeah, and then like if they're in the composer, they're draggable. It's going to be clunky and sort of shitty. Like there's a lot of Chrome in this, And then we can do potentially another round that gets it moving towards this thing. That's my instinct, because we're starting to get into a bunch of new patterns in this that may be jumping ahead too much. So
works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
when you were asking about how we get from the first frame into that composer view, are you basically saying like, if there is a block that is checked, does it appear in the composer view at the top or at the bottom? Does it have a different style? Like, is that sort of what you were asking?
So here's a model, right? This is just a sort of more advanced one. Let's see. Let's just do it again. So some model here. How does that look like? Some top level nav. I don't know what we're going to do with all this stuff yet. No, maybe something like that. So you go to the composer here. We just have one, right? Or for now, it's just the post. You click the post. It takes you here. And then this is everything that's in the post. So you're asking, like, how do the blocks get there and such? So I add a block. There we go. This selects. All right, so yeah, like it gets in the page, how, where, why. There's other stuff in the page already. Does it just goes to the top?
Yep.
And then you got to do something with it. Like where it's a force function to get it cleaned up. So if we all add a shitload of stuff in here, it's going to be chaos. So that's fine. There's just a bunch of these. We can reorder them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So these are all reorderable, all of the same. Basically, once this is in a state that we like the blocks, this is the post, right? We could have so the action in here is basically when ready, there's something to publish this. I mean, it all depends on how we're doing this. Like, I think we just get this stuff here. Get this, and then have this view.
Do we just add the publish button later?
Yeah, and then because we have to add that whole process, like getting it on chain, like previewing it, like agreeing to put it out, like what the multi-sig stuff or not or whatever.
Yep.
There. So this is basically, we've got whatever browser thing, and then we've got whatever composer. And then this can also live here. Add more stuff directly to this. That means it's just checked automatically. Don't know what this will be. Home to get you back here. Maybe home and a post. That's our nav. Does this make sense? Am I still alive?
You are alive.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
I missed a little bit there, but it sounds like this set right views, the composer is just like the very bare bones, things are highlighted and we're going to get them in order and we can add a few things to here and that's about it.
Yeah, I think that this gives us, we can post blocks into our own screens. We can look at each other's, like we can figure out what these queries are. And then we have a shared canvas, which is the composer. And the first layer of shared canvassing is doing the edit stuff that we talked about doing over here. We can probably just make these editable inline without an edit button. That might be one concession to this.
Even maybe on the other side as well. I mean,
maybe on the other side, yeah. Let's just leave. These blocks are equivalent except for they're reorderable. And then we'll run into when we want it, because my design tendency is to go this route where I've like custom everything. So yeah, this is crappy enough. It'll get us going. So we have top level nav, got this query thing, start to see that. We've got the ability to add a block. That could just be this view. These two are equivalent probably. So you add a new one, just collapsing here a little. Post it. I don't know about those buttons up top, but you get the idea.
This is looking wonderful.
Something. I like it. I like that you think this is wonderful. It makes me feel good. I can do this all day long.
Will you walk through for me when you press the blue plus sign? Is that the context body with the jimothy.eth at the top there? Does that appear or is it always there? I'm not clear on that.
Press this, select text. This opens inline or in a modal, whatever we choose. Type, post, you get one of these. It spits it out on the top of the list. If you do image, you get one of these. I haven't mocked that up. This instead would be choose file or whatever, and then you do that, you post it. Yeah, and then same thing would go here. Like you can add one to the top of this list, and the equivalent is that it's just checked. Does all that make sense?
Yep.
And the history stuff and the prime stuff, I think. Yeah, I don't know how to go about getting this ironed out. It may be that we just need to start getting things in the page and then work on this functionality, knowing that it's going to show up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then browser stuff, I don't know. I think just get the queries spitting out into the page and then all of this will start to make sense. But there's like a history component because there's also the ability to, or we can do it where you can look at one of these things and get a page with the post or the block view, but we don't need to do any of that yet. So, okay. Then we've got the connect to wallet flow, which we probably need to work out, but I don't know. Yeah, where are we at mentally? What is there any gaps in this? Like yeah.
I don't know if there's any gaps. I think we have like a good MVP. The one thing that you had mentioned earlier, Dave, was identifying like specific React components? Like, I mean, is that something we want to do as a team? Like, is that something we can just sort of hammer out right now, or?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that kind of gets into the.
Yeah, I have very little opinion on like when to create React components, how tied they should be to the Figma file. Generally, I like those things. I've seen they just emerge when we do it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to pre-design it totally.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I don't.
This is a lot to go off of. Yeah, like this is like the blueprint, honestly.
Okay, I mean.
So now the question is, where I flagged last time, like, do we want to try to build some of this asynchronously? Do we want to do it synchronously? Like, how do you move forward from here now that we have a blueprint?
I'd love to do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like maybe there's throwing something out here, but we start with a sync session where we get like the base scaffolding and routes in and like file names and locations. And then I think we will kind of see like segments of work emerge, and then kind of be able to be like, oh, okay, I can do that because that like is here and it connects to this, and I'm sort of going to take everything downstream of that, or not everything, but like at that point we'll be able to say like relative to what and after what and connected to what. And I think it would be very interesting to just have that sort of break out into flows, maybe kind of role play the PR thing where things are done in a branch and then there's feedback iteratively, and then we present something maybe at like next build session, and then we get all merged together again. So kind of sync, async, sync, but with like little conversations and such on the side in the meantime.
Yeah, if the thing can scaffold out, and then we've got like sort of placeholders for all of this, I can start painting in like sort of any of the UI stuff. Yeah, okay, that'd be great. I mean, that'd be cool. So I'd like to see how it comes in. Yeah, cool. Very curious about these queries and how they all look and navigate and things. So
yeah, I think defining some kind of languaging around it is going to be really interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we just meet up again next time, go and then jump off of this thing.
Scaffolding.
Yep.
Cool. Nice. That was easy.
I don't know
if this is freak out too much.
I'm glad to hear. As I'd like to keep the freak out level as low as possible. I guess the only thing a little hate on is where the order position data goes on event update, and this is the technical one, but like I think a lot of things are clear. That's the one thing that I'm like, is that just a new block being made with a new order, and that block is a type post, and that's it, and it's just like simple lineage and history, or is there any more complex, fancy, like live synchronous stuff happening?
I think what you just described is where we were last at with the schema stuff.
Cool. That makes sense. I mean, it's surprisingly simple.
Yeah. We'll see if it works or not, but we've got something to start with.
It's a good side. Great.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm so used to having like 50 million things to do. Like go clean all this up and polish it and make it perfect. Nope, make it ugly.
This is perfect, because I think like at least the way I build stuff in JavaScript is I try to copy in components, but it's almost never at the fully formed React level, because like like a module level, because very rarely do I get designs that are like at the 100% fidelity? And so there's always like that translation layer. And I mean, that's kind of, that feels very, very acceptable here and very fine, because there's no, I guess that, there's kind of no use specifying it down to the pixel level, because a whole button could move positions or whatever. So this is,
if we're going to do like, I mean, we started getting into it with all this stuff. There's like an app structure that's going to start developing based on like our opinion on how you move the blocks around in like space, you know, if it's a canvas or if it's this or not. So I'm trying to stay away from, I'm trying to keep it one column as long as we possibly can, until we have to start having columns talk to each other and, you know, retaining state, all this other stuff. Like, as soon as we do that, we're in app territory. So which will be fun. As much as we can know before then, we're good. So cool. All right. Well, I got nothing else. I'm gonna take such a nap.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
When are we meeting next?
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for watching all of this. I mean, this was fun. Like it builds in itself.
I mean, I think for me, like the craziest thing is like being able to say words and have a coherent like visual start to appear. Because when I get stuck in that loop of, okay, I have an idea and I'm gonna go try to render it, and just get lost in these like fractals of at what depth am I trying to specify relative to what? Like I mean, it's like very scary land for me. So I mean, and having that happen as a group is like even wilder. I mean, just wow.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this process is really fun. I think bringing in, like, because again, I'm not super warm and I don't know, there's a bunch of patterns that I'm not caught up on. So like getting sort of very warm product designers who are like have all the mobile patterns and stuff doing it this way, I think it'd be very fun for them. So because you're building in structure, I'm like, okay, so that I can add a thing here and oh, that's nice. And oh, because I'm getting real time, like there's an event here. Okay, we need to order events. Let's create an event history thing. It's much more fun than trying to imagine all this stuff yourself and then like you know, create a bunch of use cases and stuff. And I can more or less turn my brain off and just move stuff around. So I think somebody who's very warm will have a lot of fun with this. So that's cool. Anyways, when next?
Monday or Tuesday, maybe?
Yep.
Seems good to me.
Yeah.
I think my soft preference for Monday, but Tuesday should be doable as well.
Either works.
Monday, the regular time slot.
Should work for me.
Yeah, what's our regular? 3:30.
I think it's sometime between 2 and 3.
Anything in there works for me.
Yeah, 3.
Same.
Cool.
Sounds great.
Okay. Everybody think on what to call this other than Prime. That's our homework.
Prime.
Yeah.
Prime. Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.